Hello, everyone. My name is Allie Virtue, and welcome to the Pre-Diet Podcast, the podcast that is aimed at giving you all the tools, the methodology, and a very unique skill set today on how to become a healthier person, giving you that truly pre-diet approach so you don't need to start another random diet on Monday. I am so excited for you to listen to this episode. It is with Chris Pineda, PhD. He is a doctorate. He is a organizational psychologist. I'm going to read his bio, which is just very, very impressive, but I'm so excited for this episode. I learned so much, so I'm excited for you to learn a lot from Chris as well. Dr. Chris Pineda is an organizational leadership psychologist, speaker, and author whose work sits at the intersection of indigenous Filipino wisdom, modern psychology, and purpose-driven leadership. He is the creator of Culture One, a transformational philosophy that teaches leaders to reflect on their past, live fully in the present, prepare for the future together, and accompanying methodology, the 7 conditions of transformation, equips people and organizations with the universal truths needed to create environments where transformation can thrive. Chris's journey spans healthcare leadership, philanthropy, education, community development. Across every industry, he has seen the same truths repeated. Transformation begins with people, not programs. When leaders grow in purpose and relationships, and culture changes at scale. As a CEO, consultant, and keynote speaker, Chris has helped executives, educators, and community leaders design cultures built on trust, belonging, and human-centered leadership. His upcoming book, Beneath the Transaction, equips leaders everywhere to build transformational lives, teams, and organizations. Chris founded Groundwork Leadership Institute to activate a global movement of purpose and transformation with one leader, one moment, and one shift at a time. That was a lot, but that is just a fraction of what Chris is all about, and you'll very quickly realize that once you get listening to this. So without further ado, let's dive into the podcast. Welcome, Chris, to the Pre-Diet Podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Absolutely. So I think initially people on the outside, especially if they know you, they might think it's a little bit random. I don't think it's random at all. As far as like, what are we doing? You're a leadership expert talking about on health and fitness or on a health and fitness podcast. But as soon as I started to read your book, I couldn't really put it down. And everything you were starting to say or what I was reading, I felt it was very applicable to health and fitness. And I feel like that's a lot of what I spend time talking to people about is not necessarily the mystery of like what they might add into their lifestyle to quote improve their health, but it's how do we do it? And I feel like I've learned a lot just in the few chapters that I've been able to read so far. But before we dive into all of that, what else should we know about you to really get to know Chris outside of the author, the speaker, the leadership expert? What else is good context points for people?
Yeah, well, I love that you've enjoyed the book, and that's great affirmation, I guess, because I tried to write it in a way that people would benefit from every page, every chapter, and not have to read a lot of people don't read entire books nowadays anyways, so it's kind of, I tried to make sure that every chapter and every section had enough that if that's all that somebody read, that it was good enough. So I like to hear your feedback that you've enjoyed reading it and not wanting to put it down. I would say the other pieces about me that I think are helpful, that help people realize, I'm a human being as well. I mean, I love being a dad and being a husband. Been married for almost 14 years now and have 3 kids. And those people, my family, they are, obviously incredibly important in my life. So I get a lot of my personal meaning and motivation from being a family man, if you will. So also, my faith is really important to me. I'm not a faith leader by any means, but I never shy away from talking about it. That's important. And obviously, if you've read the book and seen any of my content on Instagram or anything, my culture is really important to me as well. So, I would say those are other things that that people might find interesting about me.
Absolutely. I feel like those other details that people might not assume, or there's always more to the story than kind of what is presented on social media. And
Yeah.
those factors and points of context that you just had there is very evident as soon as you really like. We haven't had too many interactions. I went to the retreat that you ran. 'Cause for those listening, my husband went through the Groundwork Leadership Institute program 2022, I think, because I don't
Yeah.
think we were
Yeah.
married yet.
2022. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right before then. And so we just had a couple interactions, I think, at a mutual friend's wedding and things like that. But it was very evident, like, family's really important to you. And then the other interaction that stuck in my head, and I was talking to Jared about this because you guys know each other much better, and this didn't even really register for him. But when we were at that retreat, I think we were one of the few people in the gym. And me and Jared were definitely just checking the box, I think, at that retreat and just like kind of pedaling on one of the Pelotons or whatever. And you definitely had a way more intense workout. And I was like, does he work out too? Like, what's the deal? And Jared's like, I don't know. We haven't talked about it much yet. Like, you guys are talking about leadership stuff. But your priorities, I feel like you wear them on your shirt, and they're very evident just from minimal interactions, which is also why I wanted to pick your brain and have you on the podcast. Because anytime someone is very successful at multiple things, I always want to know, I'm like, how do you do it? How do you balance all of that? Because I know you are very involved with your family and also, a very successful career as well.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. I remember that out at the Salishan
Yeah.
resort in the gym in the morning.
Hmm.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I've actually been, thinking about this conversation and what you do, and um, my health and my fitness is a big part of my life, and I'm by no means an expert or a guru. I think in another life I would have enjoyed, going that route. I was always an athlete, was a collegiate athlete, so I've been around fitness and health, my entire life. Never studied it, it's never been a discipline or, again, something that I've taken upon myself to become an expert in. But I've taken it seriously, and I've always taken care of it. And I've had ups and downs, right? But it's always been on a good trajectory, right? And it always was for a sport at the beginning. It was always for some outcome, like I was doing it for something. But then when that was over, which was a hard thing in and of itself, this is many years back, but when you're done playing a sport collegiately, it's like, well, what do I do now? And why do I need to go to the gym anymore? So I had that moment, and I was also a new dad at the time, and my whole routines were flipped upside down. And the only time that I could actually get a workout in was early in the morning, and this was before the 5 a.m. crew was like a trend. And
Yeah.
so that's when I started going to the gym just to get it out of the way. And as I got older and matured, it started to become more of just a thing to do and a habit, but kind of part of my ritual and my rhythm in life, and coupled it with my personal study in the morning and journaling. And again, it turned from just habit to, this is something that is such an important part of how I need to conduct my life and how I see myself being successful. And it's a controllable, there's a lot that you can't
Yeah.
control in a day. And so I've seen it as, I can control that, and I can do it no matter what, no matter where I'm at. And my wife and my family laugh at me because even when we're on vacation or we're
Yeah.
traveling, like I'm
Hmm.
still either like Googling where's the closest gym, or I'm
Yeah.
getting up in the morning and doing something, or I go to a playground. And it's a bit obsessive almost, like, I have to
Hmm.
do it. And again, it's just because I have to prove to myself every day that I'm going to control the things that I can control, and I'm going to do hard things. So
Yeah.
it's been a big part of my, just me becoming the sort of person that I am. And again, I'm not perfect, but I feel like I can be perfect in that. Like I can wake up every morning and do a workout. There's no
Hmm.
reason why I shouldn't. So I don't know if that launches the convo for us, but that's what
Yeah.
I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about it, and it's important to me.
Mhm. Well, I think, and that's why I like having these conversations. I mean, I think people might expect, like, oh, if I'm going to listen to a fitness podcast or some health related something, they're going to give me sets and reps and the best exercises to do. And I don't find that that's terribly applicable for most people. You can try to optimize to the best workout that you want, but that's so individual to the person's preferences and lifestyle. Versus, I think the more applicable tools to the wider audience is how do you get yourself to do something, which is why I was
Mhm.
so interested in like the leadership takeaways in your book or just the behavioral takeaways in your book, because that's, I think, like the secret sauce is how do you get yourself to do something when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, when you don't want to. And so yeah, that was my probably going to be my next question is what was your background as far as background or also your experience with your own health and fitness journey. So it started in college. What sport did you play?
I played soccer. Yeah, I
That's
was a
definitely a great
goalkeeper.
base of fitness. Oh, okay, yeah, definitely
I
a
was a
great base of
goalkeeper.
fitness.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and I like what you said that it's not about for me. It's not about having a workout to do, especially in today's world. There's so many resources. AI
Hmm.
now can put a workout program for you together in seconds. You have so many things available. So for a lot of people I know that maybe aren't used to it, like before all of that, before AI and even, when YouTube was not as big, it was just habit and I knew what to do. So I understand that some people they don't know what to do and that's a start, but now there's tons of resources to even know what to do. But for me it was a mental thing and I kind of shared in my journey like how it morphed. It morphed
Yeah.
from a habit to like this is actually a key part of how I lead, and it's a
Hmm.
key part of like you've been reading in the book the seven conditions. Like I have
Hmm.
to create conditions in my life and routines that help me stay on a we'll say a transformational journey of becoming. And the interesting thing about health and fitness is it's so relatable because it's visceral, it's a feeling. Like when I'm talking about choosing to be vulnerable. I mean, working out is vulnerable. Choosing to go through hard to do hard things. There's a
Hmm.
section in the purpose section. That maybe you've read of suffering well. I mean, working out is a form of suffering, and you
Hmm.
have to be able to go through something in the moment that maybe doesn't feel good. There's some discomfort because you're trusting that there's a better outcome on the other side. And to me, your health and your fitness is that, right? And there's been moments where I've cut, to get into sort of the fitness. I've gone through deep cuts and just a few years
Hmm.
ago, no, not a few, maybe it was 2 years ago, I did a really deep cut. I felt myself sort of my routines becoming pretty routine and they were
Hmm.
becoming transactional and I was kind of losing the purpose behind it. So I had to sort of have a reset and I lost over 30 pounds in 3 months because I was doing a deep cut. I was being really intentional and tying that to my essence as a leader and a father and everything. It wasn't just, oh, I got to lose weight. I had to connect it
Hmm.
to my purpose and I had to connect it to the values that I had. And so, I've had, like I said, I've had these up and down moments, but the consistency has always been there of it being a priority, and
Hmm.
to where it's a normal thing to me. I have enough friends and family to know that that's not for everybody. Everybody doesn't see it
Yeah.
as a normal thing that must happen. In my
Hmm.
mind, that's how it is. Even though I've had the ups and downs and I've had the ebb and flow of life, but it has for me it has to be something deeper. And while I'm not an expert in fitness or health, when I do work with leaders, I talk
Hmm.
about health. I talk about if we're going to create consistency in our lives, you have to find a way to be consistent in this area, to be the best version of yourself, and to not
Hmm.
be an imposter. We're always fighting the imposter syndrome, and I can't claim to be excellent. Transformation doesn't allow me to claim to be excellent in one area but then
Hmm.
average in another. It's a push to become the best version of ourselves across the board, and those conditions that you're reading about in the book are across the board. They apply in our personal relationships, professional, our health, how we take care of our not just our body but our mind, and our spirit or
Hmm.
whatever you want to call it. It's really a holistic endeavor. So I'm rambling now.
No,
But
this is great. I have
you
like
can
50
pick this
questions
apart if
just
you want.
off that. No, so many things. I mean, the first thing that came to mind, because I think that is so, it just resonates with a lot of people, is anytime there's a big transition in life. I found that as well. I played softball at Western Oregon, and then they kind of like, you're so athletic, that's like half your identity, if not more, as like a college athlete, and then you're like, boop, done. Like, now what? And you probably kind of paid, depends on the person on the team, right? But you probably paid attention to like how to keep working out. But a lot of my teammates really struggled with that. And then obviously trying to adapt your eating from doing 2-a-day practices to not doing 2-a-day practices. And then at the time, very different, trying to figure out how to work out again. That was a huge learning curve for a lot of people. And how did you navigate that transition? And maybe if you have advice from, your present self back to your, at that time, how can people navigate those big changes in life?
Yeah, well, for me specifically, coming from being a competitive athlete, and it was a sudden drop because I was pursuing some professional opportunities and actually had a couple of opportunities overseas to continue playing, but then
Hmm.
through conversations with my family, my wife, and prayer and all those things, we just realized it's not the right thing. And looking back, I'm glad that we didn't go that route because other opportunities that needed to happen presented themselves. But in the moment, it was very difficult. I was having sort of withdrawals, like I got to do this. I have to. So I this is kind of silly. This is almost embarrassing to share, but I was signing up to go to professional combines probably 2 years after, like at least one or two a year. 2 years after I was done, just to be in that environment. I wanted to
Yeah.
be in the competitive, high pressure environment. So, invites I would get to go to a combine or what have you, I mean, I was going to those because I just
Hmm.
wanted to, I was missing that environment. And so, looking back, the advice I would give myself would be, Chris, start to channel, like, why do you feel that loss,
Mm.
and where's it coming from? And channel that into something else. And what that would bring me to would be purpose, right? Like, why was that part of your identity and your purpose, and why did you feel like it was just missing? Now convert that to something else, but first by making your purpose something that is internal, that you have control over. And I don't want to get too kind of theoretical here, but oftentimes we place our value or motivations in things that are outside of us, and we don't always have control over those things. In fact, oftentimes we don't have control over those things. And so what I know now, what I would say to my younger self would be, control the things that are internal, right? The things that you have control over every day, and focus those things, because the external you can't always change. And the external for me was my sport. It was that that being in that competitive environment. That was what drove me. That was something that was a part of me, and it gave me an edge. And I felt as though I'm at my best when I have this thing that's out in front of me, and I had to realize that that's outside of you, Chris. You can't control that. So you need to put that inside of you so that you have that edge and that drive in you, no matter what the circumstance is, and let that be the thing that motivates you. So that's the theory. In practice, what that means was I had to be really clear about my why. I had to be really clear about the things that I cared about, uh, to the point that I had to define it. So a lot of my work now is I help people define that, because once they have that, now it's theirs and it's not outside of them, and it doesn't rely on a job or a hobby or a relationship. It's yours and it's internal. And there's
Hmm.
simply just a power in putting a language to that. I've seen it too much to think otherwise. When you put a language to it, there's a power. And that's the first thing. And there's many things, that come after that, but that's the first. And I'll let you respond, but even just this year, I've been put to the test at the physical,
Hmm.
at the fitness level and the physical level, in a way that I haven't experienced in my entire life. And I had a few weeks that were pretty dark, and so I had to rely on everything that I'm saying right now to pull me through it. But I'll tell you about that in a second. I think it's relevant, but I'll let
Yeah,
you kind of respond or ask any other
absolutely.
questions.
First thing that comes to mind is a lot of my husband's advice is coming up. I'm like, maybe this is where he got it. As far as like, because I'll get similar kind of mindset in the sense of like I set high standards, potentially unachievable standards for
Mm,
myself, and he's also the same. So I would say he doesn't get a free pass on this because he's like, I should be doing better, and I was like, I think you're doing great, and I will say, I think I should be doing better. He's like, I think you're doing great. Why do you think what is success? And that's something we asked each other multiple times of like I should be achieving more, and it's like, well, what does more get you? Is that really like how does that change your life? Like, really really defining it, like you said. And because I think we are so defined in certain phases of life of like the success, but that is not a static state. It's very dynamic as far as what
mm,
success can be. And I think completing that kind of picture of, yeah, what is a successful Allie in 2 years? It probably looks a little bit different than Allie 2026. She's probably
yeah.
has slightly different priorities, but some things can be constants for sure. But I would love to hear, yeah, how you were challenged physically that you mentioned.
Yeah, well, I want to respond to what you said first because I think, and this is certainly wrapped up in the example I gave, coming from being a collegiate athlete, but another way of framing that I didn't have the
Mm-hmm.
language then that I have now, and this is what I work with
Mm-hmm.
leaders on, is the difference between, when you say defining success, the difference between accomplishments and
Mm-hmm.
becoming, right? Because if we set our level of what success means at a bar of accomplishments, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm successful when I accomplish X, Y, or Z, that's still
Mm-hmm.
outside of ourself. And
Yeah.
and they're concrete. And that's helpful because that's how goal setting works, right? You
Yeah.
work towards a certain goal. But the most valuable part of goal setting isn't the accomplishment, it's what we're becoming in the pursuit of it. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's not about accomplishment as it is much as it is about becoming. And
Mm-hmm.
becoming is what we have control over because I don't want to accomplish X if it means that I'm going to become a jerk in the pursuit of it,
Yeah.
right? I want to
Yep.
accomplish X and become the sort of person that is calm in during pressure,
Mm-hmm.
that can go through hard things, that can be kind and understanding even when there's a difficult situation to handle. Those are so much more valuable. That to me, that's how we should define our success is
Mm-hmm.
who are we becoming and are we intentional about it? Because if we leave it to the external, then we
Mm-hmm.
let the world and our life dictate who we become, and we even tie our goals up into things that are outside of us, and then we
Mm-hmm.
force those outcomes. And again, sometimes when we force those outcomes, we're not proud of who we became. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
to put simply, we may lie, cheat, and steal to get there, right?
Yeah.
Versus if I set goals and standards of myself, which is all about purpose, right? My
Mm-hmm.
purpose isn't an outcome that I'm going to achieve one day that says I did it, box checked. What's my
Mm-hmm.
next purpose? That's not
Yeah.
that's not purpose. That's a goal.
Yeah.
Purpose is what do I want to become in this
Mm-hmm.
life? And and it has to be aspirational enough that it motivates us every day, but attainable enough to where we feel it when we're doing our best
Mm-hmm.
to live it. But it's not an accomplishment. It's a state of becoming. And so, for example, my why, and I stated in the book, is to give my heart to the divine by being an influence for good and
Mm-hmm.
catalyzing transformation in the world. So when I set that as a goal, we'll say, of what
Yeah.
success looks like, I'm confident that if I stay oriented towards that, I'm going to become a better version of myself. Versus if I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I just want to make $100 million, I might not be proud of who I am at the end of that. And we've heard
Yeah.
enough wealthy people say, like, it's nice to have money, but it doesn't make you like you could have a pretty empty and hollow and lonely life with all that money. And money is just an easy metric for success, right? The same would go for
Yes.
fitness. Like I could
Mm-hmm.
I could have exact body that I want or whatever and be miserable because I
Yeah.
haven't connected it to something deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So my ultimate test recently was on December 27th. So just a few months ago, playing basketball. I was in this basketball tournament I've played in every year for many years. you pay to play, and the winner takes all, and a lot of former pros and college players play, so you have
Oh,
to really show up. I'm getting older, so I warm up really long, and even before, this is the funny part, like before, I'm like praying in my mind, like, don't get hurt, Chris, like the
don't break
last thing he
anything.
needs to
Yeah,
get hurt.
don't break anything.
Third game, I jump up to get a rebound and I rupture my patella tendon, complete rupture. So, for people that don't
Ouch.
know what that is, I mean, that's the tendon that connects to your shin bone to your kneecap, from your kneecap
Hmm.
to your quad, and it holds everything
Yeah.
together. Like, you can't move your leg properly without it. And it ruptured. It
Mm.
wasn't a tear, like, it completely
Okay.
ruptured clean off of my kneecap. And my kneecap floated up my leg, and my quad retracted up my leg. It's a pretty serious injury. It's not very common
Yeah.
either. It mostly happens with people that were, you know, elite or high performing athletes, because the training is what does it. Like,
Hmm.
overtraining basically is what causes it. And I did overtrain in college, and my trainers would always warn me, like, Chris, you got to give more rest and ice, like simple stuff. Like, you should rest it and
Yeah.
ice more, because you're doing too many back to back, training. Like, one day you're going to pay the price. And I was like, I'll be fine. Well,
Turns out.
14 years later, I rupture my my patella tendon, and thankfully for modern medicine, these things can be healed.
Yeah.
100 years ago, you're crippled when that happens. There's no
Yeah.
way to fix it. But it's a pretty intense surgery. They have to drill holes through your kneecap and suture your tendon back to your kneecap, and then they put a graft on my tendon, and it's a 9 to 10 month full recovery. So I'm still in recovery, but the first couple of months, like the first 8 weeks, you're pretty immobile. I mean, 6 weeks in a
Hmm.
straight legged brace, you can't really bend it. There's a lot of pain. Your whole body,
Hmm.
your whole leg goes into atrophy, and I've never had that before.
Yeah.
I've never had any muscle go into complete atrophy to where you literally can't activate it. So my whole
Hmm.
leg goes into atrophy, and this is long recovery, and then just knowing, like, oh man, not till September, October am I going to even be back to full strength. I was pretty miserable when it first happened,
Yeah.
and it was right after we moved. I left my 9 to 5 well-paying job. I was in healthcare leadership. I left it to finish writing this book. I wrote this book last fall, got a publisher, and we had all these plans for our business and all
Hmm.
these things. And then that happened. It literally set me back, and I was laying in bed for several weeks, and uh, and it was devastating. Like, I had nights. I don't want to sound like a baby here, but like, I had
You're
nights
good.
where I
You're
was
good.
crying, like, to sleep, because I'm like, I can't do anything, and I don't. It
Yeah.
sounds silly now too, but when I was in the moment, when you're feeling that you can't move a part of your body, and you're in this
Hmm.
pain, even though you know that things are going to get better, you're sitting there
Yeah.
and you're like, what if it doesn't? What if things
Yeah.
don't get better? What if this doesn't heal properly? What
Yeah.
and I was miserable, and I felt like I wasn't doing my job as a husband and father. Like, my job as a husband and father, I think, is I got to provide for my family. I got to
Yeah.
protect them, and I got to preside as like, I'm the dad here. And I felt as though I couldn't do any of those things. Like, I couldn't protect my
Yeah.
family if I tried at this moment. I'm super vulnerable. I wasn't
Yeah.
providing, and I was barely present. Like, I felt I was depressed, like,
Yeah.
the most depressed I've been, frankly. And again, it's
Hmm.
kind of silly, like an injury did this to me, but it did, and I was pretty low. And so in those moments, I was brought back to everything that I've shared with you.
Hmm.
Like, it's funny too, because like the book was done being written, and I'm like laying in bed, like, oh well, I guess I better apply all these things. And I had
Yeah.
to I had to really attach myself to the things that I could control. And
Hmm.
so I chose, even the week and a half before surgery, when I couldn't move, like literally my leg wasn't functional, and then even after surgery, I was choosing, like, I'm still going to wake up in the morning as early as I can. Some of the meds made it
Hmm.
hard to wake up some days, but I still, like, I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to read, I'm going to study, and I'm going to journal, and I'm going to do a
Hmm.
workout. Now, my workout was sitting up on the ground, shadow boxing, just pumping
Still
these
counts.
arms. That was
Yeah.
it.
It still
Like,
counts. Yeah.
20 minutes to get some
Mm-hmm.
blood flow. Cause I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this is not, I had to choose like, this is
Mm-hmm.
not going to ruin me. Cause I was so scared cause
Yeah.
I'm used to waking up, going to the gym and throwing the weights around and like being,
Yeah.
yeah, I like to lift, that's like my style. I'm like, I can't do that anymore. At least not for a while. In fact, just like 2 weeks ago, I was able to finally start lifting lower body again. And so I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
squats with just like the bar again, like starting from,
Yes.
and my quad muscles are slowly coming back, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still just I'm probably like compared to my left leg, this was my right leg, like my
Yeah.
right leg is still probably only at 60% of the size of my left. So like
Mm-hmm.
it's still a recovery. And next month I get to start running like little by little, like little jogs, like jog a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, jog a block, and then walk.
Yeah.
And so I'm still in this recovery, but that first few weeks were so hard. And
That's rough.
it put my it put my habits and my beliefs to the test at the most fundamental level. Like,
Mm-hmm.
am I still going to wake up and do these things that I believe are important for my mind, not just for my body,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
for my mind? I actually lost a ton of weight because I wasn't eating, and the medicines and the things I was on, like my appetite was gone. So like I wasn't worried about, oh, I'm going to get fat. Like that wasn't it. It was just I need to stay in control of some of the little things that I can control, because the world took away all the things that I am used to doing by a
Yeah.
simple, silly injury. Like I no longer can do these things. I can't wake up and go on a walk. I can't wake up and go on a hike. And so it's helped me not take so many things for granted. And I've been going on walks now the last several weeks in the morning, and I absolutely, love it. And I don't take it for granted anymore. And I still hobble down hills because, I have to be careful. But
Yeah. Downhill.
but the point I'm trying to bring up is, in those moments where I felt like everything was kind of taken from me, I still
Mm-hmm.
had to focus on, you can control when you wake up, Chris, and you can
Mm-hmm.
you can read your scriptures, you can write something down in a journal, and you can even sit up on your butt and do some shadow boxing.
You can do it.
And so like
Absolutely.
that was the ultimate test, and it's still fresh, but I feel as though like, okay, I got through
Mm-hmm.
that really hard part. And in the middle of it,
Yeah.
I honestly, Allie, it was so hard when you're in it, because like I said, it felt like, what if things don't get better? And your mind just like imagines the worst case. Well, it turns out I'm healing. I'm getting better. My legs back to full range of motion, muscles coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, I don't. It wouldn't have happened again without staying consistent and controlling what you can control. So I've been rambling a lot. So I'm gonna be quiet and let
No,
you
it's a
respond
great
to all that.
it's so many things. It's a great, and that's why I think stories, you know this as being an author, but stories are so powerful. And I think that's just that advice never gets old. We hear it a lot of like control what you can control, but it's so true. And the group program, more like a membership because it's a super low cost, like monthly membership for people. Everybody has like the same 10 points to, hopefully check off their list. But the program is called like Become a Healthier You, because I'm not defining their health goals. It's totally like what they
Hmm.
envision as like what is a healthier version of them. And that could still be getting McDonald's once a month if that's their level of like what they're okay with, right? They still want to enjoy it. They're not going full like 100%, the cleanest food ever or whatever. And but I always reiterate that because people will say like, even if I'm working with someone one on one, like, well, it's not a good time, like I have a lot of vacation coming up, or like I just got injured, so like I don't know if this is the right time to do this. And I think that's also what stuck out to me, reading your book, of like, of course a business transaction is a form of a transaction when someone works with me, and I get that, but also like I have always wanted it to be a transformation. And so that was kind of a click, and I have more questions on that later. But I think when I'm working with someone, I was like, even if you, yeah, like you said, like have a significant injury like that and you're laid up for a while, we still need that time to be on your calendar. So maybe your morning workout time is now your rehab time. It looks a little bit different, the intensity is different, but if we look at the kind of vision of yourself you want to maintain, and the habits you want to maintain going forward, like it doesn't change. Like I'm sure there'll be times in my life when I can't, yeah, work out in the morning, but if I have an injury or if I get sick, it's going to look a little different. But like you said, like that workout turns to a walk, and then eventually that walk turns into a little bit more activity, and then I get myself back in the gym. But it's always on my to-do list, and I think that's so important, and it forces you to rely on other things. So if someone's laid up with an injury and they're like, well, I can't, make the most of your services, I don't even prescribe anything besides like steps and like
Mm,
general activity and like habits.
yeah.
But I was like, this is a time where you can learn a lot more about food, because there's going to be times where we can't maximize every area of our health or every area of our routine and lifestyle, but we can learn a lot more about food. We can heal and, supply as much nutrition to our body as possible. And then, when you get back to your gym, like you're going to get super strong, be super healthy. And now you've learned from that phase of life, even though it was kind of sucky that you didn't get to do everything that we wanted and still
Yeah.
work out and do all those things.
Yeah. And, one of the other benefits I'll say of the injury, it caused me to slow down a little bit in life, by necessity. I'm pretty fast paced going individual, and it taught me to slow down a little more, appreciate things that sometimes, like I said, I would take for granted, and that was helpful too. Because I guess my stubborn mentality wasn't ever going to let myself slow down, so the universe caused me to do it. But that was a helpful thing, and like you said, it allowed me to see other things that I would have maybe not deemed as important enough during, if my life was normal and I was going through, all the same things I was used to doing. So that was a benefit. And there's been some really good things that came out of that, specifically in some of my relationships. And so, the way that you are approaching fitness and health and nutrition and all these things, I appreciate it and I like it because it's holistic as to the person, and everyone's different. Unfortunately, there's no like one size fits all, right? If there was, and if it was easy, then everybody would do it, and science and things and innovation try to find easy
Mm-hmm.
routes for people. And
Yeah.
sometimes they work, but are they lasting, and do you get the mental psychological benefit? Like I
Yeah.
can maybe take a pill and it can shed off in 30 days, but do I get the same internal benefit from it?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I'd go back to, I know I'm not dissing any things that are out there.
Yeah.
I'm not educated enough to even have a real opinion on it, but I would say that for me, it goes back to the external. If I'm relying on
Mm-hmm.
external things to change me and transform me, then I'm
Right.
not really changing and transforming. I'm just
Yeah.
forcing an outcome. And Jared would maybe remember this analogy, but we'd use it a lot in groundwork where we'd talk about innovation, we talk about ideas, and that could be anything. So we'll put it in this context. And I would use this
Mm-hmm.
analogy of, it's the difference between, okay, we want apples. So
Mm-hmm.
I can go to the store and buy apples, or I
Mm-hmm.
can plant my own apple tree. And those are two very different, we might get the same outcome, but it's really not the same outcome. And it's not the outcome that matters. And this is what you've read about in the book. Transformation isn't the destination anyways. It never was. It's the journey. So me
Mm-hmm.
forcing an outcome and going to buy apples at the store, I get the apple. But that's sort of a shallow perspective of achievement and success. Whereas if I plant the apple tree, the seed, I have to nurture it, I have to take care of it, I have to change how I habits and routines. And not only that, I have to get other people to buy into what we're trying to grow together. And then one day we get apples, but it's not just that one time. We don't have to keep going back. And we don't develop
Yeah.
systems and process that get us to go back to the grocery store. We actually
Yeah.
built something internally that we own, that's ours. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's transformation, is that
Mm-hmm.
process and that journey. And I see it applicable in health as well. I can force the outcome and buy the apples at the store, or I can build my own apple tree. And one of those options is a lot more fulfilling and transformative.
And repeatable. I mean, I guess you can always go to the store, but like you're going to learn so much in the process. And so, if something goes wrong during the next endeavor of the next time you grow an apple tree, You
Yeah.
probably learned something the first time. You're like, oh, it needed more water or it needed fertilizer or the sun wasn't right. And so you're able to, impact your results again versus if the store's out of apples, like,
Hmm.
now what? You don't really
Yeah.
have much to work with. But that's a great, because one of the quotes that stuck out to me in your book was transformation is caught, not taught. Or, yeah, caught, not
Yeah.
taught.
Hmm.
How do you, I guess, because that made me think of like my weekly calls or check-in calls with clients as more kind of invitations to invite more transformation or more opportunities for them and to improve, because there's a lot of failure in my industry. I mean, like the diet culture is tough. The wellness industry is hard to navigate. But what are some ways that, I mean, I'm guessing this is the majority of the book, but to invite more opportunities for people to catch that transformation?
Yeah, this is a great question, especially in your line of work, because I'm used to talking about that transformations caught not taught in a cultural sort of relational sort of aspect, in culture and relationships, but it's so applicable, I think, in health. The meaning behind this is, and again, this isn't like I didn't just think of this in a room, nor did I think of all those 7 conditions. This came from actual research conducted, formal academic research. So I have to put that plug in so that people know I'm not just like trying to make this up. And what it comes from is the idea that you can't force transformation. I can't just teach somebody the steps of transformation and then they go out tomorrow and do it. You have to catch it. And the word catch is so important because I'll use the most basic analogy people might think of when they hear the word catch. Fishing. Like I'm not a fisherman, but I know a lot of people that are really into it. And like when they catch a fish, it's a rush. And
Yeah.
and so there's a difference between like, oh, I'm just casting this thing out in the water and reeling, like anybody can do that. But when you catch it, you're like, okay, this is what it's like. And that's the same with transformation. You have to have moments, you have to have something that helps you catch it. Like, this is it. This is what transformation means. This is what the journey looks like. Because I can teach you everything you need to know, I can tell you all the things, but until you catch it, it's not going to do anything. The reason why I like this in the health and fitness nutrition context is it's so applicable. You can give people all the right things to do,
Oh
like,
my
hey, here it
gosh. Yeah.
is. Here's the process.
Yeah.
Follow the diet. Here, count your macros.
Yeah.
This is your stuff. This is your workout. These are the things. But it's not until somebody catches it. And to me, when somebody catches transformation, it's a feeling and it's overwhelming. And in the moment when somebody catches it, the best of them or their potential is comes to the surface. They feel something that is almost hard to describe as you're seeing me sitting here trying to describe it. It aligns with things that they want to care about deeply. And so when somebody catches transformation, it makes sense and they'll know it. They'll feel it. And I would say the same thing when they're trying to improve their lifestyle. When they catch it, they're going to know it and they're going to feel it. It's not going to be a burden anymore. Oh, I got to do this thing. It's going to become part of how they operate their life because they've caught the transformation and the benefit that it will be to them and others in their life. That, to me, that's catching transformation. This is the sort of paradox of like, control what you can control, right? Not things that are outside of yourself. But when you catch transformation, you start to just see that what you can control is the truth. Like, that is what I can control, but you start to see the impact that it can have on your environment. When we're living transactionally, and I think this applies to health, we let the external day-to-day life impact us. Everything. Well, I have all these pressures. I have all these things I can do. I don't have time to work out. I can't think. Don't have time to eat right because I'm just going boom, 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 boom. We just
Yeah.
let life impact us. Transformation is, I'm going to change me first, but something interesting happens. I start to impact my environment in a completely different way, but it starts here. And so transaction just tries to control the exterior, well, if I just get rid of these different things in my life, then maybe finally I can do this. Transformation will say, no, I'm going to I'm going to be different here. And then
Mhm.
again, the result is things actually start to change around me.
Mhm.
So again, I know that's all kind of theoretical, but that's what to me that's catching transformation. Is it just you feel differently about what's in front of you because you've changed. The things outside of you didn't change. Life didn't change. You're still looking at the same person in the mirror, that you were
Mhm.
yesterday. You still have the same job. You still have the same routines. You still like to eat Cheetos. Like all these things are still there. You have
Yeah.
just changed internally, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and that's catching transformation. Is you start to see that it starts here with me, not outside of me.
Mhm.
That's a
That resonates so much because I had a client that was pretty tough. She's probably one of my hardest clients just because she was seeing a lot of these obstacles, just like everything had an obstacle, and I felt like I was in a tennis match, just like slinging
mm,
things back of like, what about this solution? What about this solution? And then a big one was which this is a lot of people, so it's not just any one individual. But the rain in Oregon, and I want people to walk and exercise, and it's a simple, accessible, free way to just move your body right before we invest in the best exercise plan or whatever, or personal trainer. And that kind of pauses, and she's like, because I'm like, hey, can we go for a walk? She's like, yes, but it's raining, and this comes up all the time. And she's like, hang on, do you live here? I was like, I do live here. She's like, what do you do when it's raining? I was like, I go for a walk anyway. And Jared, full credit to my husband. He doesn't ask me if I want to go for a walk anymore because he knows I'll say no. It's an honest answer. But he's like, it's time to walk, not do you want to walk? Because I don't. I would find other things that I'd rather be doing. But I do have enough evidence now that I always enjoy those walks. They're some of our best like quality time together, best conversation, and just like there's so many benefits. But that's also after years and teaching my brain of like you like this, like
yeah.
go. It's worth getting that over that initial barrier. And even times when we've been absolutely soaked, like we've never really looked at each other and be like, I'm really wish I didn't do that. Like it
Yeah.
was always
Why'd we do
fine.
this?
Yeah, it's always been fine. Like it's not a big deal. But whereas, yeah, when clients start to kind of build some momentum, they're like they stop seeing those things. And to your point of your family knows that like you just need to go work out. That's one of the things I say all the time of like you're going to have to retrain your people. Like you've been acting a certain way for 20, 30, 40 years and now you're changing it on them. It's different. They might have questions, there might be some friction, but when you start ordering healthy at a restaurant or go to a party and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're not eating the cake." Now when I go to those types of social situations, people are not going to comment on my food. If they do, they're going to be like, wow, it's so healthy. And it's like, it doesn't even register as like a inconvenience on my radar. But that takes a second for people to get really confident in being a healthier person, being a healthier version of themselves, and not letting those barriers just like overwhelm them, because it
And
can
to
be
and
a
to
lot of
expect
those.
it to be hard too, like
Hmm.
we're kidding ourselves if we think it's going to be easy. We should expect it to be hard. And, in the book too, I talk about discomfort as a cheat code to growth because we have to start to lean into discomfort because we know that, okay, this is uncomfortable for a reason and something better's on the other side of this. And and I think we have to expect it, like we have to understand that the journey that I'm going to go on right now is going to be hard. And there's
Hmm.
something again about saying that out loud and acknowledging it that is freeing and liberating because now I've gotten ahead of the future resistance I know I'm going to face. And
Hmm.
somebody that has strength to me isn't someone who like was better than the person next to them. It was simply somebody that felt the same fear and doubt and did it anyways. Like that's strength to me. That's courage. They're no different than the next person other than I felt the same things that everyone else felt. I just did it anyways. That's strength. And that's the same feeling. That's why I like fitness so much is that's the same thing you're going to feel when you start lifting weights. It's going to hurt. And you know that
Yeah.
hurt when you're doing the curl or the squat or the run or whatever, you know that
Hmm.
that's good for you. And the more you do it, the better the stronger you're going to get. and the weight doesn't get any lighter, you just get stronger. And that's the analogy that I love about fitness, is it's real, it's so tangible, right? What I was saying
Mm-hmm.
before, without weights, it's very mental, it's psychological,
Mm-hmm.
you can't feel it and touch it. But working out and nutrition and all these things, you can see the results and you can feel them. And so I think that that's a great thing that you can do with clients, is it starts here for them, but then it's going to
Yeah,
result in tangible differences in their life.
absolutely. How much, because again, yeah, and it's because I feel like sometimes when I'm talking about those other things, one, people don't necessarily expect me to talk about them. They're like, aren't you going to talk about vegetables and macros? And, if I didn't
Yeah.
track my food, there's no point in checking in. And I was like, it's quite common actually that we're not talking a lot about that stuff because, like, with AI and there's lots of information out there. That's not the biggest mystery. Happy to provide that information, of course, and make it personalized to the person. But it's like, how do we get the food on the plate? How do we get the workouts done? How do we get your butt in bed at a reasonable hour? Like, how do we make all of that stuff happen? That's like the hardest part. And so sometimes I'll feel like, not necessarily my area of scope of practice because I'm not like a counselor or anything, or but how do you work those conversations when people are hiring you for business or leadership specific things and you're like, hey, you have this gaping hole in your game, potentially if it's like a health issue or just like a weakness in someone's performance when they're focused on the professional side, but you're like, hey, this area is really weak. How do you kind of take that holistic approach and gently, highlight that for someone, or how often does that come up with your
Yeah. I
clients?
think it comes up every time. And, I think the first way is obviously acknowledging and talking about the pain points that they're feeling, which are usually these results of something much deeper. So it's, in your world, it's, I feel unhealthy, I'm tired all the time, I'm not happy with the way I look, and whatever the case is, like that's what they're feeling every day, but there's a
Mm-hmm.
reason why they're feeling that way. So in the professional world or the organizational world, it could be a leader that, gosh, no, nobody's really trusting me, and I don't know how to, I don't know how to quite have these conversations, and nobody's being accountable, and I don't know how to hold them accountable, and or like I don't know how to have. I think I mentioned this. I don't know how to have these difficult conversations. I don't even know how to run a meeting appropriately. Like it's these very visceral things that they're seeing and feeling on a day to day, and it's acknowledging those and seeing those for what they are, but then helping people see that, okay, well, just imagine that I gave you a 5-second sentence that's going to change the outcome of a conversation that you have with an employee. Would you want that? And everybody's gonna be like, absolutely, yeah, I would want that. What is it? Well, the 5 word, that simple sentence, it's not going to work every single time, right? Unless you're addressing the root cause. So what is the root cause of all of these things? Why does your team not trust you? Or why, are they not understanding or being accountable? Why are your meetings not going well? Tell me about that. And so then we dig deeper and we dig deeper and we dig deeper. And so it's a it's a very not the game 20 questions, but it's a very, let me find out why you really feel this way. And there's something about helping people see a problem and a solution, but not giving them the bridge to it. You're talking enough about their problem that they feel, and you're pointing enough to a solution, and then when they put those things together, that's kind of when it clicks. And that's another way to put like what it means to catch transformation. It's, okay, here's what I'm really feeling, and this is what's relevant to me, and here's a potential solution. And finally, for the first time, I'm seeing how these things connect. That's when somebody catches it, because a lot of people maybe know that these things are good. It's good to start with why. It's good to,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just name any leadership book. It's good to do all these things, but yet I still
Mm-hmm.
have all these struggles over here at work. Like that doesn't work. It's because they haven't dug deep enough to find out what the root of the problem is. And, spoiler alert is that it starts with us. So the problem is them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the problem
Dang
is
it.
me. And until they face that, and I often say transformation is simply holding a mirror up. Until they face that, they're not going to get anywhere. So it depends on the person, but you have,
Hmm.
for me, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just answering your question. This is what I do.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
try to ask enough questions to find out what's
Hmm.
really going on, and but also relating to them enough with their headaches that they're feeling on the surface, but ask them enough questions to know what's really happening here, and then dangling the carrot of, hey, you're the problem, but I'm not like forcing them to eat it. They have to be
Yeah.
like, oh, this is me. This is me. And it's funny. I mean, Jared could tell you stories. I mean,
Yeah.
we'd be in groundwork sessions, and literally somebody would raise their hand and be like,
Mhm.
I'm just now realizing that this is me. Like, I'm just now realizing that I'm the problem,
That's
and
hilarious.
it was always kind of humorous, because it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, where have you been? Obviously I'd never respond that way, but people would
Yeah.
literally raise their hand and say, I'm just sitting here this whole time realizing now that I am the problem in this situation. And we had one leader, business owner in town, and she joined the institute because she's like, I'm just looking at what's next, like what's my next chapter in life, like I have started a
Hmm.
successful business. I'm not really needed in the day to day anymore. Like, I just want to know what's next for me on my journey. and
Hmm.
and literally in our retreat, like that same one you went to, she second day, she's like, I'm realizing now that I need to go back and fix a lot of the things that I've done in my business. Like, I am not done. I have
Wow.
I have not I have not thought about my employees the way that I should have. I have not, all these things she's listed,
Hmm.
and it was her realization that I am the problem, right? I need to go back and make these things right. This same leader, she shared on the last day when we're sharing takeaways. She's like, she has one daughter, teenage daughter at the time, and she kept opening up about how she struggles with this relationship with her daughter. And on the last day, she's like, so I was on the phone last night with my daughter, and my daughter finally interrupts me, and she's like, we've been struggling for a long time, in our relationship, but she interrupts me, and she's like, Mom, where are you? She's like, I'm at this leadership thing. She's like, is this like a cult or something? Because you're totally different than you were 2 days ago. And I'm not gonna
Wow.
lie, I like this. It
Yeah.
was just another realization for her to be
Hmm.
like, wow, I am the problem. When I change, other things change in my life.
Hmm.
So that's the irony, is
Yeah.
how do you help people be the first to change in their life? To me,
Hmm.
that's my role as a coach and consultant in transformation, whether I'm thinking of a person or an organization, is my job is to help them get to a place where they can see how they're the
Hmm.
problem. So anybody listening, I hope that that doesn't offend you, but
I
that's kind
love
of the
that.
journey of transformation.
That should be good news though, because like you said, you are within your own control. So if you're the problem, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You can do something about that. I think that's a Jocko quote too of like, if you're the problem, his response is just good. You can do
Good.
something about it versus if somebody else is being a problem, it's like, how much is that within your control?
Mm,
But that's fantastic. That's really, really, really great. But yeah, I'm sure it takes a while to kind of get to that realization. But when to your analogy of the fishing, that makes so much sense because fishing is so like again, not a fisherman whatsoever. But it does make a lot of sense. You can have the gear, you can have the top of the line gear, you can be at the right spot. Everybody said this is a great place to catch fish, and you could get nothing. Absolutely. Like you did everything. You can have all the skills. And that's probably one of the quotes that I hear all the time is like, I know what to do. I just need to do it.
mm,
And it's so frustrating for me as a coach because like I can't do it for them. I can't eat the vegetables for them. I can't, meet everybody I work with for a walk or take them to the gym. Like there's only so much I can do. But but I think it's still worth the effort of working on these skills. And I always say that with any of this stuff because people might say like, well, I didn't make the most of my week or, I feel like I've wasted, the last week or last month of working with you. And I was like, these skills are always applicable to anything in life. You're just learning how to change your behavior, whether it's for diet now or for building a new hobby later. Like it's still applicable of like, how do we get ourselves to do those
yeah.
transformations and continue to develop those skills still helpful.
Yeah, and well, knowledge also doesn't equal understanding, you know? Like I can have the
Mm,
knowledge of a lot of things. I could read a book and be very knowledgeable. And that's, you know, my only beef I guess with the phrase of knowledge is power. I would say that understanding is, because you can know all sorts of stuff, but if you understanding it is something entirely different. And you only understand something when you actually do it, and
mhm.
you suffer through it, you know? Like I I could understand how to how a Olympic diver does what they do. You know, like I
Yeah.
could understand. I mean, sorry, I couldn't have the knowledge
Looks,
around it.
yeah.
I get it. I could read all about it and I could hear them talk. Okay,
Hmm.
that makes sense. But
Hmm.
I'm not going to understand it unless I go and jump off a diving board. Like the fishing, I can know exactly.
Hmm.
I can watch all the YouTube videos in the world, but I'm not going to understand it till I go and suffer through it and figure it out. And I think the same goes with our health. Is I know there, and that's funny because I think I've heard people say that before. I've been guilty of saying that before. I know what to
Yeah.
do. I just am not doing it. I'm not doing it because
Yeah.
I don't truly understand it. If I understood it, I would, I would make sure that I did it because I
Hmm.
would understand the benefit fully in my life, and I would feel that benefit. I would have caught it, and therefore I'm
Yeah.
changed instead of just knowing the right thing. So all that to say is I think that knowledge and understanding are two different things as well.
I think so too. I was in a, yeah, doing a speaking event, and they're like, this stuff, one of the persons there, not offended by this at all. He's like, it's simple. Like you do this and you do that. And he's like, just like finances is, it's simple to do that and do this. And I was like, you guys are professionals. Like I know there's more to your job than like just, don't spend as much and save more or invest in this and not in that type of thing. But you do learn so much from just the simple implications, or the applying what you know or what you learned, and you learn so much of it. Because yeah, to the point of where people are like, well, I know what to do, I just don't do it. And I was like, you might think it's simple and you just need to eat a salad and protein, but it turns out you actually need to go grocery shopping on a regular basis, and you need to make time for that, and you need to, not overspend at the grocery store buying this versus that. And turns out you also need to cook the food, and like there's 50 more steps than we anticipate, and when we simplify it down to you just
Yeah.
need to do this. But
Yeah.
I, I find that those processes interesting, because then you can kind of dissect it and find out where the barrier is for somebody, or where's the tough part in their lifestyle for the day or for the week, and help them figure out like, oh, that's why that's been hard to do it. It's not from a lack of motivation or a lack of discipline, because those people are usually very successful at other things that I'm not good at. But
Yeah.
I happen to be good at this, and they happen to be good
Uh-huh.
at those other things, but still trying to challenge, or use what they're good at and apply it to this new set of skills that they're trying to learn, so that can
Yeah.
still, because I see a lot of people, to your point of this whole point of this podcast, or talking about transformation, is people will, I think, kind of bog themselves down and say like, well, I'm not athletic, I've never been an athlete, I don't identify as an athletic person, so this is always going to be a struggle for me. And I was like, I think you're a human, you got a body, like you can be an athlete. You don't have to go to the
Yeah.
Olympics anymore to be an athlete. I still identify as an athlete, and I'm not signing up for any races or competitions, but it helps me make that other stuff easier if that's a pretty core trait or an important part of my identity.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's powerful. A lot of cross synergy, and obviously, you know, the work that I do with leaders and organizations and health. Like I said, I think in another life I would pursue a path of being a more of a guru and an expert in the fitness and nutrition world, and I know enough to and understand enough to respect it and apply it in my life, and to give maybe some good advice to people.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, the discipline that you've taken to master it and knowing how to help people go on that journey is something different entirely. So
Mm-hmm.
we need people in our life, coaches, mentors, people to help us in the areas where we're not expert, in the areas
Mm-hmm.
where we need to learn. Nobody has ever succeeded without a mentor or a coach of some kind, and we we should apply that in every facet of our life. We should find those people. It not just obviously in our fitness and health. Like a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
lack. Find somebody that can help you, right? Find Allie, find people like Allie to help you. If it's in your leadership or your work life, again, find people to help you. If it's in your relationships, even in your personal relationships, find mentors, find people to learn from. I think that the third side, being the third side, is something I found valuable, is being the third side to people. But we need to find those people. We need to find the coaches and the mentors, because there's no way that we can be an expert in all things or understand
No,
all things. We need to lean on the understanding of those that have walked the path first.
absolutely. So well said. I think, but even if we're not experts in things, I think just if someone sees us working on all aspects of ourselves, like they might not see you as like a fitness professional, but they see that like Chris is very well balanced in as many areas of life as you can be. And I think that's how I've chosen mentors in the past. Like the business coach that I've looked up to, like she had her family life was clearly very important to her. She was very successful in business. She prioritized her own health, while raising, three kids and from with a wide age gap. I was like, she's doing the things. Like I want to learn how she does business while still doing
Mm,
other things. Like very well balanced versus hiring, yeah, a business guru that, is doesn't have a great family life or work life balance. I was like, I don't think I'm going to learn much from that person versus the holistic
yeah.
person I want to become.
I
Absolutely.
have a funny story to end what got me into coaching many years ago, like coaching, not a sport, but like coaching people and their leadership and life and things. I don't identify as a life coach by any means, but my coaching tends to bridge into people's lives. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
leadership; it's in their lives. But what got me into it, to realize that, okay, maybe this is something I ought to focus on more, not just being kind of a speaker, presenter, or strategic guide, but a coach. I was presenting with a group one time, and most of the people that showed up were men. That was not the point. There was a couple of
Mm-hmm.
females, but most of them were men, and most of them were older than me, and probably had more life experience. And I I just did my thing. I presented on something to do with team building. And after, one of them stayed after, and he's like, "Do you coach?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Do you coach? Life,
Mm-hmm.
like life coaching. Do you ever life coach anybody?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. I coach people, around conflict and relationships sometimes." And this was kind of earlier in my career. This was a while back, and he's like, "Well, will you be my life coach?" And I'm like, um, "Sure. What do you mean by that?" So I had to like dig in a
Yeah.
bit. What do you mean by being your life coach? And he's like, "I just want to get some life coaching from you." And I didn't know what that meant. I don't think he knew what it meant. He's just like, "Will you be my life coach? I'll pay you." And he's like, "I'll pay you money for it." And I said, "Can I ask you why you want this from me? Like, because it's not specific or niche to leadership
Mm-hmm.
or relationships or conflict or things that I was like kind of specific and expert in." He was like, "No, I want life coaching." I'm like, "I've never been a life coach. Tell me why." And he said, "Well, I'm just sitting in this room and I know all these people. I know all these men, and they're alphas." He's like, "They're alpha. These are alphas. Like nobody, they don't just listen to anybody." But
Mm-hmm.
I saw them all just fixated on everything that you were saying. And then I look at you and I think, this guy can probably do a bunch of pull ups and a bunch of push ups. So I want to learn from him. and
Yeah.
that's what he said. And I'll never forget that moment. And I actually loved working with this guy, and we had several sessions together. And frankly, I could be so much more helpful to him now than I was back then, but I did my best. And I just always laugh though, because what caught his
Yeah.
attention was his literal words were, I look at you up there and I just think, this guy can probably do a bunch of pull-ups.
You got your life
So
dialed if you could do a bunch of
it was
pull-ups.
it was like my first exposure to, okay, well, I guess the way you present and
Mm-hmm.
and how you look physically does have an impact on some people, versus if I guess I looked kind of like a slob and didn't have it together, he probably would have never had that positive takeaway. So and he wasn't asking me for fitness advice, by the way. That was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
that was just like what the coaching we did
Mm-hmm.
had everything to do with what he was wanting to do with this next chapter in his life, and and how to navigate the new relationships and things going
Mm-hmm.
on that were all very different from doing a bunch of pull-ups. But I
Yeah,
I always laughed that, okay,
that was on the list.
my commitment to fitness caught somebody's attention,
Mhm.
and the work we did had nothing to do with fitness. So I thought
That's fantastic.
that was kind of funny. So
That is pretty funny. I've heard that multiple times though, so it doesn't surprise me at all. But it is funny what just like when people are in that moment of like, this is why, and I'm like, okay, cool, good to know. Good
this
to
guy
know what
looks like he can do a bunch of pull-ups. I loved it.
hired. Awesome. Well, yeah, I do want to respect your time. A couple closing questions. One that I didn't really anticipate would be a good thought-provoking question, but has been generated some good thoughts in the past, is if you could normalize one thing in society, in our culture, in order to improve our population's health at the population level, what comes to mind? Because we talk about a lot of things that, like, we have to fight uphill for our health a lot of times, like fast food's common. It's common not to work out.
Mm.
It's common to not do any of those things. But also people have said things along lines of like, I wish people just accepted themselves more, or,
Yeah.
it's okay to look different, as it can be really anything.
I would say if more people were truly vulnerable, um, if that was normalized,
Mm-hmm.
and what I mean by truly vulnerable is we told the truth about ourselves, first to ourselves and then to others, not for the sake of attention or anything, but for the sake of, when I'm vulnerable, I contribute to relationships and people around me. That's, to me, true vulnerability is, I know that I'm going to be vulnerable and tell the truth here because I know it's going to make this relationship better, or this team better, or my organization better. Not like, oh, I'm going to divulge these things about myself to get attention from other people. That's not vulnerability. So, but I think vulnerability, people being more vulnerable would, and if that was normalized, relationships would be better, teams would be better, organizations would be better, communities would be better. There's so much value in just telling the truth about ourselves, first in the mirror and then to others around us, that goes a long way. And most of the transformational moments, like not the journey itself, but like moments in time that were transformational, were right on the other side of somebody being vulnerable. So, yeah, that's what I would normalize.
That's perfect. I think that's great. That can go in so many different directions. That's perfect. Well, lastly, where can people find you? Your book is out soon. What's the actual date that it launches? I know we've already pre-ordered it on Amazon, but where can people find the book and find you in general?
Yeah, it's Beneath the Transaction, Discover the 7 Conditions that Transform Life and Leadership. Again, it's based upon a lot of stories and actual research. But Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any major retailer, you can find it. You can pre-order it now. Releases on May 19th. We're trying to get as many pre-orders as possible. We hit Amazon bestseller in our first week and a half, which means we're top 10. But personally, it would be great to get to number 1, because
Yeah.
then Amazon keeps you as kind of a bestseller if you're hit number 1. The highest we got was number 4. So we're going for number 1, because they keep you in that category, and they kind of continue to kind of keep you at the front. So it just more reach hits, it connects to more people. So that's the book. Again, Beneath the Transaction. We have a podcast called Beneath the Transaction, where we talk to people about how to move beneath the transaction in life and leadership. The simple movement that we have is live beneath. So when I speak in any places, I just spoke in Chicago this last week. If I'm speaking, that's the core, takeaway is live beneath. And obviously you can find me on social media. My handle, what is it? Transform with Chris on Instagram, and trying to grow on there as well. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I mean, you can find me. So
Awesome.
website beneaththetransaction.com. I mean, I shouldn't be too hard to find.
No worries. I'll link all of that below. I think I already got them all. Wonderful. Make sure we'll follow along and see all the great and wonderful things. And then for those that are local in Salem, you're speaking next Thursday. Is that the 28th? The book launch?
Yeah, I think it's the 30th. The 30th.
30th.
Yeah, next Thursday, the 30th. It's free to the public. We're at the Convention Center, downtown Salem. Doors open at 6, and then it starts at 6:30 to 8:30. And it's full agenda, so it's not like a swing by. It's, we want you to come and attend the whole time. We're going to have some leaders, other leaders in the community that are in the book speak. And then I'll share kind of our signature keynote that I do, which is called Marked by Purpose. We do this really cool portrait experience, which is hard to talk about without giving too much away, but we'll have that offered, and then, have a bunch of books and t-shirts and swag items. And again, it's free to the public, but we obviously want people to register so we can have a good head count. So if you go to my profile, you can find the registration link. It's not hard, but it's in my bio. So
perfect.
Yeah,
I'll link that too. No problem. Awesome, Chris. Well, thanks so much for being here. I'll get all that linked up, and hopefully people listening will see you at that event.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a fun convo.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Before you go, if you found this episode helpful, please make sure you share it on your social media. Maybe send it to a friend, maybe your accountability buddy. If you can like this video on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed on the YouTube channel. If you are on Spotify, please follow along, maybe give us a review. If you are on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review there or a comment. That is ever so helpful for us to grow the show and get in front of more people. Lastly, if you would like more free resources linked or sent directly to your email, make sure you join the Free Shit Friday email list at parksidenutrition.com/subscribe. Otherwise, make sure you follow me on social media, on Instagram, and Chris as well. I'll have all of his links below. And if you're interested in attending the event that we mentioned in the episode, make sure you get registered for that too. And I hope to see you there.